Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
Live from 8 a.m. Arizona time, the rare morning record for us. I am good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it is. I told Sam before we started recording, this is the first time I've spoken out loud today, so we'll see if I start fumbling over my words at any point of this podcast. But I wanted to get this one out early. I have a busy day today, so it's a good time for us to get together and talk about all the mistakes we made last week. No, I'm kidding. But since the last time we recorded, I wanted to start the podcast with this. First of all, the Suns have been good. They've won games. They've kept somehow out of the play-in, 3-1. Kevin Durant, after we talked about him shooting 44%, 26% from 3 and 75% from the line since All-Star break, had games of 35 points, 45 points, 45 points, and 37 points, shooting 54% from the field, 10% better, 46% from 3, 20% better, and somehow still inexplicably 82% from the line, but that is still an improvement. And then he led the Suns to a 3-1 record in a time where Devin Booker only played one of those 4 games, and he had maybe the best week he's had since he's been on the Phoenix Suns, right?
Yeah, no, arguably, he's had some other great weeks, so I don't know. It's hard to say, but he has absolutely been sensational this week. And yes, it is funny that just in our last podcast, we talked extensively, like maybe 20, 25 minutes about KD off the top. Some people are going to blame us. I prefer to blame Country K, who sent us in a question last week that we responded to about basically claiming that KD is capital C cooked. And yeah, so I prefer to place the blame. And he was wrong. He was wrong.
I'm guessing
Kay.
He didn't leave us a voicemail this week. Yeah.
He did not leave us a voicemail. He was thinking about it, I think, but he did not leave us a voicemail. I haven't seen any new voicemails in the last couple of days. We mentioned the voicemail line often enough these days. You guys should know the deal by now. You can drop us in a question or comment anytime, and maybe we'll respond to it. But yeah, KD was sensational this week, particularly with his shot making. I think the playmaking was more balanced, just generally speaking, especially yesterday's game as Booker came back. And then Bradley Beal as well has had a good week. I think we'll get to him next and talk about, specifically what he's injected into the offense. But for KD, taking difficult shots, taking easy shots sometimes, catch and shoot threes, pull up threes, kind of just doing a little bit of everything. The free throw percentage, I think, is he was slumping weirdly in it for a little while, and I think is slowly recovering too. So, 54, 47, 83 shooting splits for him over the past week. And he's just been awesome.
Looking to score, attacking in a face-up, a matchup, shooting a bunch of threes in this last game in particular, and just looking really great. And I think we talked about it. I was hoping He is now, I think, beyond the total amount of games he's played in a season since he tore his Achilles. So he has now, this season will be the most games he's played since then. So I was hoping it wasn't anything having to do with that, and it seems like it's not. Obviously, he had some of the best games we've seen him play on the Suns in the regular season. In particular, I think the one that was insanely impressive was against the Boston Celtics. I think this stretch by him is helped out by the fact that he, for his individual scoring, like the Celtics game, they didn't really double him very much. And if you don't double Kevin Durant, he's going to score 45 points. Like, we've seen that now with him for how long. And, you know, the Celtics are the type of team that can withstand that and still actually win the game because of their great defense on everyone else and their ability to shoot a ton of threes on the other end of the floor. But they did find a way to win that. But Kevin Durant, if you don't send a double at him, which they didn't in that game, and I think in this 37-point game that he played yesterday as well, they didn't really send any doubles at him because Devin Booker and Bradley Beal were back in the game, and he got 37 points in that one. Yeah. And you just see how the context of everyone makes more sense when everyone's healthy. We had this conversation over and over and over again. But I do want to ask you, we didn't record after it. The Celtics game in particular, we talked about that before the season even started. You and I circled these two Celtics games. We're recording this one before the next Celtics game, which is on Thursday on TNT, I believe. Hopefully the entire Suns team will be healthy for that. We don't know about the Celtics and who's going to play in that one for them.
News on Porzingis for
this
them.
One will be at Boston as well, which is a little bit different, obviously. But what have you thought about that matchup and how obviously no Devin Booker in this last game? But what have you thought about that matchup? Since,
no Devin Booker just changes everything. Obviously, again, Porzingis was not playing for Boston, but going back to kind of the context surrounding that game and the game that KD had there specifically, the previous two games before that against Denver, which was 2 wins actually, great win against Denver, and a close win that I think we watched on playback was frustrating at times against Toronto. Grayson Allen had hit 8 threes in each of those 2 games. And so, the way Boston comes out defending KD in single coverage, and then just not helping off of the role players like Grayson Allen, who had just made 16 threes in the previous 2 games, I think was a very intentional choice on their part. And frankly, a smart choice given the way that Grayson had been playing. So we saw fewer open shots from Grayson, fewer open shots from guys like Eric Gordon didn't do anything in that game. Royce O'Neal didn't do anything in that game. And part of it was they weren't getting as many open shots. Part of it was that when they did get open shots, they were just bricking. So if we go into Boston on the road and we can get even, we have to see if, EG is going to be back. He has this knee inflammation problem now, so I don't know what's going on with him. But, if we can get even a couple of threes out of Eric Gordon or Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen in that game, then, forget Devin Booker for a second. That would help immensely because truly it was KD against the world in that first Boston game. There were no role players giving him any sort of help. So, we'll see. I mean, if Boston's going to be afraid to send doubles at any of us when we have the big 3, then I'm not particularly worried about their ability to produce offense.
They have incredible. The Celtics are the best team in the NBA, like full stop so far this season. They have incredible individual defenders. Without Porzingis, like it feels like a scenario where, although Nurkic was good and has been good lately, just in general, he's just been really great. It feels like a team where maybe the Suns, if they're going to play the Suns like that, they're going to find ways to shut them down individually, or if they can find ways to sustain whatever output there is by the big 3, it might be one of those games where you might want to just try extended minutes with Kevin Durant at the 5. If Porzingis is in now, Porzingis is guarding Kevin Durant on the perimeter, and they're going to have to bring a second defender, I think, in that case, because there were times late in the game where they were getting switches with Al Horford guarding Kevin Durant out on the perimeter, and he was getting great shots out of that. If it's Porzingis and if Devin Booker's back, then I feel like, how do you justify just allowing that to go one-on-one over and over and over again when they have a bunch of guys who could do that? I mean, that's kind of the purpose of this team. That's what the way they were built, where they could win games where it was by sheer star power in order to win games, because that's where they struggled in the playoffs in the past. So they made all these moves we saw a team that was defending them in a way where you kind of look at it and you say, okay, this is where the big three is going to matter. And it would be nice to see that happening, at Boston. A difficult team to beat no matter what. If they're all healthy, if they're all feeling good, that will be a game that I think we're all going to watch really closely to see how big of a difference Devin Booker makes. They have to defend well, too, on the other end because, man, they shoot so many threes.
Yeah, and a point related to that, actually, I think was particularly poignant in this first Boston game. But as we play more and more playoff teams here down the stretch in the regular season, I think we're seeing it again and again. That Boston game was really physical. And I don't know if you've been noticing, Mike, but I know some national pundits are pointing this out. The NBA as a whole, since the All-Star break ended, is averaging about 5 free throw attempts fewer per game. We're approaching a point and I saw that in previous seasons, not much of a difference, because some people make the argument, oh, this is how officiating always goes. Every year as they ramp up for the playoffs, there are always going to be fewer free throw attempts. They're always like ramping up into this more physical play. If you look at previous seasons, before All-Star break, after All-Star break, not really a difference in how many free throws teams were shooting. This year, there is what I would call at this point a statistically significant difference. It feels like frankly, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but it feels like Adam Silver put in the call. It really does.
He got mad at the All-Star game and he said, "Let them get hit."
I really think that's what that's what it is. I think he got mad at the All-Star game and said, "Offensive ratings are out of control. Let's rein it in."
I think it creates a better product overall.
Right.
As someone who watches only one team specifically, it gets a little frustrating when you see Kevin Durant getting mauled, because I think in particular teams really send the physicality at him. It is a little frustrating to watch him get hit over and over and over again, and
especially
and
with Drew Holiday, guarding him. Yeah. And I made a point on Twitter the night of that game that Drew Holiday is allowed to foul anyone, and it's been that way for a long time. So my point is, if this is the new context that we're in, I truly think Adam Silver might have put in the call, and now they're going to call fewer fouls because they want to lessen this offensive boon a little bit. Suns need to respond to that. They need to match the defensive energy and kind of understand maybe this different context that they're in. And now, they might get hit a little bit more often, but then they need to match that on the other side and play with a little bit more aggression than I think we've seen from some of them. Maybe afraid to get, pick up their third or fourth foul early on in a game, or, the context is just different. It feels like. So we need to respond.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think the irony of that is Jusuf Nurkic, I feel like, has been in foul trouble a little bit more recently, and maybe that's just more of just him being maybe out of position or reaching in on guys he shouldn't be, and or playing against Jokic. that will help you to get in foul trouble depending on the game. But yeah, I think that's a good point. They can actually lean into that a little bit more, play a little more physically. Hopefully Josh Okogie gets back at some point soon, because the Suns, I think, could use a little bit more depth with the ability to play differently. I think we saw Darius Garland yesterday just going wild.
Perfect
against
example.
the Suns, because they couldn't really fight through screens. Yeah. That's a game where somebody like Josh Okogie could actually help with something like that.
Well, and also just, we talked about this on the playback last night for the Cavs game, but Suns opened that game and dropped. We were expecting maybe, I was expecting, I brought up in pregame, the Cavs start multiple kind of non-shooters. They've got Isaac Okoro on the starting lineup right now. They've got Karis LeVert in the starting lineup right now. I was thinking maybe they're going to put Nurkic on a non-shooter to open the game, and Royce or KD or someone, guarding those screening actions between Garland and Jared Allen, and either switch a bunch or be aggressive on Darius Garland in some way. Instead, they open the game and drop. Darius Garland, not feeling any pressure whatsoever, gets enormously hot in the first quarter, makes 6 threes, and then finally they switch up their strategy in the second quarter. They start hard hedging. They start playing at or above the level of the screen. But for a little while, he finally cooled off in the second half. For a little while, it almost felt like it was too late. He was still making shots with a hand in his face. He was still playing awesome. And then eventually, finally, you chip away at the lead in the third and fourth quarters. We see the benefits of playing more physical, playing more aggressive on a Cavs team that only had one pick and roll playmaker in Darius Garland because Donovan Mitchell was out. So it's they got to lean into that even more. I don't understand still why it took so long for them to finally embrace playing that strategy on Garland, but once they finally did it, it worked.
Yeah, it did kind of remind me of Monty in the let's play what's gotten us here and then make adjustments based on that, which, to be fair, against a team in the Cavs who are missing a bunch of players, I think you can start a certain way and see if it works. And, of course, in this game it didn't. They also switched Nurkic onto Okoro in the second half for a while. And the Cavs, of course, being a smart team, just brought Okoro up into the screen, and then now it was Nurkic being involved in the play anyway. Eventually, I think they started to change even that strategy because forcing the ball into Okoro's hands or into Jarrett Allen's hands in the middle of the floor wasn't really working well for them. That's the kind of decisions that the Suns need to force other teams to make. All of a sudden, if they're changing their strategy, now they're attacking Grayson Allen or Devin Booker one-on-one defensively. Those guys have held their own pretty well so far this season. Will it be perfect? No, but that's not bad for the Suns. That's a scenario where it's no longer a wide-open pull-up three. It's no longer a shot right at the rim. It's just a contested mid-range shot for the majority of that time.
Grayson had, in particular, some really good one-on-one defensive reps against Garland in the fourth quarter yesterday. He held his own really well, especially for a guy who's now logging like 37, 38 minutes in a lot of these games. Tired legs at the end of a game. I thought Grayson's done a really good job.
I'm glad you brought that up. I looked it up because I felt the same way. In fact, I was thinking, man, since the All-Star break, I feel like Grayson Allen's really kind of upped his defensive intensity and has done a really good job, particularly in one-on-one scenarios. So I looked that up. I had this for later in the podcast, but I did look that up, so I'll just bring it up now since you touched on it. Overall, on the entire season, there's not a lot of great stats to track defense because so much of it is how good of a team defender are you, how good is your team while you're on the floor. Some of those stats for him aren't great, particularly because often Grayson's in to guard the best player on the other team. So regardless of how well he's doing individually or one-on-one, the offensive rating for the other team is going to be at its best when Grayson's on the floor because he's guarding the best offensive player on the other team, so they're on the floor too. So I looked at differential by itself because differential tracks when he's the main defender, how well is the other player shooting. So I thought this was a good way of tracking individual defense. On the season, when he's guarding players, they're minus basically 1% of their field goal percentage, which is good. It's not great. It's basically as if they're shooting based on their averages. But in the 10 games since All-Star break, when I've started to think, hey, is Grayson becoming a better individual defender? They're shooting minus 5.8 when Grayson Allen is guarding them. And that is a good defensive stat when you're guarding essentially the best player on the other team in a lot of defensive possessions just sort of over and over and over again. So you're right. I think it feels like Grayson Allen has done a pretty good job defensively recently, and the stats do kind of point that way. He's actually doing a good job. But I will say, looking at that stat, I looked at it for the whole team. Eric Gordon is plus 5.7 in that stat. He's playing really bad defense lately. If it felt like he was, and I wasn't even looking this up to check it felt like he's been playing bad defense lately. The stats also bear that out. He's been playing incredibly bad defense lately.
We can have an EG conversation in a little bit because I think a lot of people are kind of have been interested recently in touching on that. But just with Grayson, it's like there's this perpetual debate now that we have of can Royce O'Neal start? Should Royce O'Neal start? And I think the answer just continues to be no because the net ratings with Grayson in the starting lineup just continue to be rock solid, if not awesome. We've seen that all season long, so why change up a good thing? He's, has these games where he's making 8 threes kind of frequently now, if not 9 threes this season. Has happened like 4 times. And meanwhile, Royce just has a few too many duds where he's going to have awesome games, but he's also
boom or bust offensively.
He's just boom or bust. And so, Royce is going to continue to play his role. He's going to be very important for this team in the playoffs. But I just don't think – I think Grayson's given you too much on offense and not sacrificing enough on the defensive end, especially with the way he's playing lately, that you would want to change anything up. Grayson has to continue to be the starter.
Yeah, Royce 0 points against Cleveland yesterday, 3 points against Boston. And this is not, he still was fine, you know?
This is the Eric Gordon thing, though, right? Like, okay, we can inject a little bit of Eric Gordon into the conversation now. It's like, yeah, I recognize his defense is bad. I know his defense is bad. We had a conversation with Kellen, who was joined us for playback last night, just talking about, like, what is EG? I think someone in the chat was asking us, what's going to be the deal with EG this offseason? Is he going to kind of be disgruntled enough that he would actually sign somewhere else and leave the Suns? And we were saying, like, I don't know that at this stage in his career, the type of defense he's playing, the type of offensive production he's giving, and the amount of mileage on his body, like, I'm sure Gordon could get a contract with some bad team somewhere that would allow him to play 30 minutes a game, but would it be substantially more than a league minimum contract? Honestly, I don't think it would be. So, you know, I don't think we're necessarily in danger of that, but just still, game like Cleveland yesterday, the Suns had what? 10 bench points, like 8 bench points, something like that. You know, there is still value that Eric Gordon, for all his defensive flaws, you know, for the fact that maybe he wants to see more touches or maybe he's not entirely comfortable in this current offensive situation, he's still shooting he's still shooting 38% on threes on like 6 attempts a game for the entire season. He's still averaging like 12 points a game. There is value to what he brings. It's not like, you know, a friend of the pod who I love a lot, but said the other day that the Suns would be better if they just cut him. I don't believe that. They would not.
Well, that may be true, I think, though, in the playoffs, in that he is playing, I think, badly enough that he might not get minutes in the playoff rotation if he continues to play like he is. The thing about guys who are 35, and we should mention this after Kevin Durant had maybe a lower standard week for him in last week, and then an above standard week for him in this week as another 35-year-old. Obviously, Eric Gordon's nowhere near as consistent as Kevin Durant. But the thing about guys who are 35 is they probably will have times where they're playing badly and times where they're playing a lot better. Excuse me, morning throat here. But I think Eric Gordon can bounce back a little bit, play a little bit better. But right now, it is true that he is playing really badly. And if he continues to play the way he is playing right now, he is playing himself out of the playoff rotation come the playoffs. And I think the reason it stands out for a lot of Suns fans is because he was leaking quotes to Chris Haynes 2 months ago about how he deserves to be involved in the offense a little bit more. And I think he has at times played like he should, but most of the time I think played like maybe that's not quite true. And I think in particular since the Royce O'Neal trade, when we have another guy who's willing to go 1 for 9 in a game, for example, when Eric Gordon is also willing to do that, you know, because a willingness to shoot a lot of threes is a skill, and it is something that Eric Gordon has. But now Royce O'Neal also has that, but plays above average. Defense, it's tough. Like, I don't think Eric Gordon should be cut, but I also, you know, he can play right now with the Suns needing the depth for the rest of the regular season. But he is not playing like the guy that we were hoping would be a contributor in the playoffs.
Important
right now.
To remember about Royce, though, he is willing to shoot a lot of threes. He is, I hate, maybe this is like too harsh of a word, he's kind of useless inside of 10 feet. You know, he pump fakes, he drives.
He's a good passer, but yeah.
Okay. If he takes a layup, bro, that shit's not going in. You know, like Royce.
Most of the time, it's true. Yeah.
When Royce drives, I have no faith that anything good is going to come of it. And with Gordon, what I will say is I think we would look at his season campaign so differently if, you know, he's been struggling to get these foul calls all season long, and it's still just not happening. And now we're talking about how officials league-wide are swallowing their whistles, so I guess it's just not going to happen. I think if this were a normal year for Gordon, where he's getting the calls that throughout his career he's come to expect on his drives, we would be looking at his entire campaign differently, because it would be the inside-outside balance of powers that we see, and instead it's like he's driving, he's trying to get calls at the rim. He's still a much better finisher than Royce, much better. But without kind of those 2 or 3 extra free throw attempts a game that he used to get, it's just not the same level of offensive impact if, you know, 80% of what he's providing is from the 3-point line.
Let's talk a little bit more about the big three because I want to just spend a little bit longer on them. We talked about Kevin Durant, who had an incredible week. For the fourth time, I don't know, Bradley Beal feels like he's getting his feet back under him, right? It feels like we're starting to see Bradley Beal play like the player that we expected him to be this season, in a season where he struggled just being in and out of the rotation pretty regularly. In his last few games, I think since in this last week, same week that Kevin Durant had his amazing week, Bradley Beal is essentially averaging 21 points and 5 assists, which feels like somewhere he could be. It almost feels like, because Devin Booker was out, higher scoring than we even need from him on a regular basis. But, in the loss to OKC, which was we talked about on our last podcast, he had 31 points, a great game. 16 against the Denver Nuggets in that overtime win, including a couple really important late game shots that he hit in that game. 20 points against the Toronto Raptors, a good game against the Boston Celtics where he started out a little slow offensively but ended shooting 50% on 25 points, and then 24 points against Cleveland in a game that there were only 6 bench points. I looked it up. So obviously the big three was massive in that game against Cleveland. Driving a ton. Our friend David had a lot of the great stats on just the relentlessness of the Bradley Beal drive, in particular without Devin Booker recently. Starting to look pretty good, right?
The driving stat is key. That's what we've been waiting to see all along. And by the way, for as awesome as KD has been this week, and he has been, let me just reiterate, he has been awesome. But I don't think it's a coincidence that KD gets out of the slump that he was having and the Suns' offense looks a little better as soon as Brad Beal comes back and starts driving 16 times a game. It is not a coincidence.
Right.
It's exactly, you can clown on us for the episode we had last week. We didn't say KD was cooked. We just said he was struggling. You can clown on us.
We have podcasts every week. If a player plays bad that week, we have to talk about it.
But I'm saying it's exactly what we were asking for. We were asking for an offense that doesn't revolve around waiting 15 seconds to get into anything and just dumping it to KD in a post-up where now he's facing double coverage. I was asking specifically for a perimeter-oriented attack centering Beal or anyone. It doesn't have to be Beal necessarily, but just anyone who can drive the ball, touch the paint, and then kick out to shooters and find KD also by virtue of that. Beal, before his most recent injury, these are the kind of stats that David was pointing out, 10.8 drives per game. Since his return, the last 6 games, 16.8 drives per game. And we've talked about also just the value of him being the one who brings the ball up and not Booker, and kind of assuming that role as the de facto point guard of this team. Booker is a tremendous driver as well in his own right, but Beal brings something more methodical to the Suns' offense, I think, when he's running sets like their Spain pick and roll and their variations of it. He is just a little bit more versatile in all of the different options. You feel the different options, the different potential outcomes of a set like that. Yeah, scoring. Like he can hit you with a hezzy and put the defender on his hip, and then do what Devin Booker does 90% of the time, which is step back, one dribble step back into the mid-range. Or he can continue to have you on his hip and just slowly, methodically work you in all the way to the rim and score. And that's what's going to suck the defense in, and that's what's going to create open threes in the corner on the wing. And, there's just an element to his game. Like, he is still the smallest of the big three, naturally, and, I think, like, he's going to continue to maybe get blocked at the rim more than those other two guys would, and he can't always create in one-on-one ISO situations the amount of space that the other two guys can, but there's something about his driving game that just really, really works, and it's making the Suns' offense cook as of late.
16.8 drives per game by Bradley Beal is also in that stretch, what you're talking about, since he came back, which is 6 games or whatever, is 7th in the NBA in drives per game, just behind Jalen Brunson, obviously one of the best players in the NBA so far this season, and just ahead of Zion Williamson, or tied essentially with Zion Williamson, who of course that's all he does is drive. And it really is important, I think, for Bradley Beal to do it One, because yes, like you said, he's great at it. He has the ability to get by guys. He has that first step. He has the speed. He has the hesitations that give him the space to get beyond guys. But yes, beyond that, Kevin Durant is doing it more than he has in previous years. Not a big part of his game because he just doesn't need to do it in order to be an effective scorer. And I think to some extent, not to the extent of Kevin Durant, but the same is true for Devin Booker, who can do it, does do it, doesn't do it as much, is not capable of doing it as much as Bradley Beal. So a relentless attacking by him just puts pressure on the defense in a way that no other guy can do. And we've seen it time and time again with the Suns. They have enough smart players, they have enough quick thinkers that if the ball hits the paint and gets swung out to somebody else, there will be consecutive passes fast enough to get open shots on the perimeter, and Bradley Beal is going to make a huge difference when it comes to that. Having said that, you're talking about basically the possession starting with Bradley Beal, and he has done a good job. Devin Booker is a better passer, just full stop passer. There are a certain kind, and I think we saw it yesterday in Cleveland, a certain kind of pass that exists when Devin Booker is on the floor, a skip pass that just goes beyond the defense, that flies to a shooter in one pass instead of two or three because of a single drive, that Bradley Beal can't make. So I think and I was talking about this with Kellen on playback, I don't think they have yet to find the exact perfect balance of when Devin Booker is at point guard and when Bradley Beal is. They've shifted the offense, I think, to Bradley Beal pretty obviously, I think, in the time when the three of them are healthy, because of how it opens up Devin Booker as a scorer. And I think we've saw in the month of January and some of the games in February before Bradley Beal was out with that ankle injury, hamstring injury, we saw the extent to which it can help Devin Booker in his scoring to have a guy that's also setting him up. They got to figure out that balance a little more. I think it makes perfect sense that they haven't quite figured it out exactly because they just haven't played enough games together to really figure it out.
They're up to 14-7 together as a big three, which, 21 games. It's not that much. It is good evidence of the fact that those three are playing well together. 14-7, that's a good record, and hopefully we get another 15 games, knocking on wood very loudly here, of them, a little bit more continuity before the end of the season. But in general, I agree with you. Booker is a better skip passer, no doubt. I think he just had more. Well, I'm not sure that this is true because Beal spent so much time seeing similar coverages his last couple of years in Washington when he led the league in scoring, similar to what Booker was doing when he was kind of the point guard in Phoenix and the team was really bad. So I think maybe both of them have seen a similar number of reps having to play point guard, and Booker is just a little bit better at it.
Just different skill sets, yeah.
What Beal provides with the driving, it's the advantage creation that I really just think has to be the priority for this offense. So, I'm in full support of what they've been doing recently, swinging the balance a little bit back towards his direction.
And yeah, it's just, there were times, I think, in the game yesterday against Cleveland, I think there were probably 3 shots in a row where we saw Devin Booker just set up at the top of the key and just face up against his man and just hit a couple of those. It was like Chris Paul was back. It really was. Just a couple of those slow dribbles, threatening to drive, threatening to step back, but just lulling the defense to a sleep in a way where all of a sudden, even though the guy at the wing is Kevin Durant, all of a sudden Kevin Durant's defender starts just sort of lurking a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer to Devin Booker. And right when he was out of position to get a proper contest on a Kevin Durant jumper, he just fired the pass right over to Kevin Durant, right in his shooting box, and then Kevin Durant made 2 or 3 threes in a row, whatever it ended up being. The third one probably contested in a way that nobody besides Kevin Durant could make it, but he is Kevin Durant after all. But it was, to me, it was a reminder of how Devin Booker played with Chris Paul for 3 years, and he just kind of absorbed some of that Chris Paul-ness in a way that, other guys just didn't do. And you see him back, and all of a sudden there are these passes that just feel like a point guard who's played point guard for a long time and understands we can get this guy going a little easier and lull them to sleep a little easier. But he is back now. Big 3 back. And I just want to quickly look ahead at the schedule since we're on that. And then, of course, we have some other stuff that we can talk about here. Celtics on Thursday. They have a couple of days off. This is a road trip. It's a 4-game road trip. Then they have 2 games at home, and then they're on the road again for 5 games. Celtics, Hornets, Bucks, who are now playing well. The Bucks kind of got their groove back a little bit. And then they come back home for 76ers and Hawks. 76ers, I think, because of the amount of injuries that they've had lately, and now including a Tyrese Maxey injury, I imagine there's a chance he could be back. I haven't followed just how severe that is for that game. 76ers, when you looked at the March schedule at the beginning of the year, it felt a little bit different than looking at that 76ers game now coming up. The Suns have a chance, even though they're playing some teams that are struggling here, or I'm sorry, some teams that are good here. They have a chance against, if they win against the Celtics, they're going to have the Hornets, the Bucks, the 76ers, the Hawks, and then 2 games against the Spurs.
The Spurs. Well, weirdly.
And they're at San Antonio, and who knows?
The Spurs scare me more than any other team on that schedule besides the Celtics. Just quick note on the Sixers. The Sixers giving us maybe one of the all-time games of the NBA season against the Knicks recently, right? It was them, the 79-73 final score between those 2 teams. Yeah. Unbelievable that happened in 2024.
I believe that that game ended with one team shooting 33% and the other shooting like 37%.
That's awesome.
It was. I looked at that score and I said, "Is this wrong? Is ESPN wrong in the morning?"
Well, yeah, because sometimes ESPN and NBA they bug out and they don't give you the updated data.
I had to double check.
Yeah, they call it the Plumber Bowl because of the amount of plumbers and firemen that were playing in that game.
Just 4 guys guarding Jalen Brunson, basically.
before we make fun of them too much, though, we need to take care of business against teams like that, especially at home. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, oh my God, a Boston win on Thursday would bring such great vibes to this group.
Yeah,
because
there are such things as acceptable acceptable losses at certain times of the year, like that Celtics loss at home without Devin Booker in a time where Bradley Beal wasn't quite exactly where he can be. It felt like an acceptable loss. Fun? No. Can the Suns, or should the Suns have won that game? Yeah, I mean there are chances they could have won. I think now with all of them healthy, it feels a little less acceptable. I think they gotta win that one to really bring the vibes up.
Let me check out. I got Boston's home record is insane this year, man. They are 29-3 at home.
That's nuts. Yeah.
It's going to be tough, especially if KP is back. But, again, just hoping that kind of the continuity builds and we see that there. Here's the real point. If they lose against Boston, honestly, I could see that as another acceptable loss, as much as I want to see them win that game to prove themselves as contenders. They had one really good win recently against Denver. I feel like that legitimized us a little bit, but a Boston win would do way more for that. If you lose the Boston game, you cannot then lose the Charlotte game. If you lose the Boston game, then you need to beat Charlotte.
You arguably should win against Charlotte and Milwaukee. Of course, Milwaukee playing better, but you got to make up for that. Yeah.
And I guess we could take the opportunity here to do we look at the rest of the Western Conference standings? We haven't really done a standings check-in.
Can we? So while we're on the players, can we just quickly talk about the guy who closed the game yesterday in Drew Eubanks? Just quickly. And that we finally got somebody did ask about Thaddeus Young. They asked Frank Vogel about Thaddeus Young. How come he's not playing? What's going on? And he just straight up said Eubanks is above him in the rotation. Then yesterday, Nurkic, having a pretty good game, was in foul trouble, but was having a pretty good game, didn't even end up closing that game. Drew Eubanks ended up closing that game. Now we can talk about Ramadan, by the way, because this is the first time that Nurkic in his career has been healthy during Ramadan. So we don't have a lot of...
It changes every year, right, according to the calendar. So sometimes it doesn't coincide with the NBA season. But yes, for those who don't know, Nurkic is an observant Muslim, and he is observing Ramadan for the next month. So it's going to finish, I think, just a little bit before the end of the regular season. But for the next month, he has to fast from dusk till dawn, and that is going to affect, definitely, I think, how much he has in the tank. And I am praying, by the way, Mike, that when Vogel was asked last night about why did Eubanks finish the game, he said something about like, oh, we just like the energy Drew brings and the coverages and yada, 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 something about the matchup. I am really hoping, low-key, that he was just saving face for the fact that Nurkic, because of Ramadan, was too tired to go back in the game and used it as an opportunity to play up Eubanks, because he can't openly say, oh, Eubanks sucks, but Nurkic didn't have anything left and we needed Eubanks to finish the game. That's what I'm hoping was happening behind the scenes, because if Vogel truly believes that Eubanks is this like amazing high energy guy in spite of all of the evidence that we've seen, I just don't understand what he's looking at this point.
Yeah, it's weird to he particularly brought up the matchup with Darius Garland on the perimeter and the ability for Thaddeus Young to get out there and chase on the perimeter, or I'm sorry, the ability for Eubanks to do it, and it's like, what was Thad brought here for? That's the kind of defense. It's not like you brought Thad to play in a drop and meet guys at the rim to block shots. He's like 6'8", he's 6'9". He's not that kind of player. You kind of want him out on the perimeter, maybe not fully switching on against stars, but at the very least getting out there, chasing him around for a bit, and then getting back to his man, which is the way the Suns are playing defense in that game. And, now with Nurkic in Ramadan, maybe it doesn't impact his play. Maybe it does. And if it does, when else are we going to see Thad? Or did the Suns just sign Thaddeus Young to sit on the bench for depth and that's it? It kind of feels like that might be where we're at, because Frank, for whatever reason, it seems important at the very least for Frank Vogel that Drew Eubanks is confident come playoff times, at the very least, right? You could say he's playing him to win right now, but maybe there's something else. Maybe he's looking down the road and he's saying, okay, we're playing against, I don't know, Minnesota potentially, which we'll talk about in a sec. Yeah. In the first round, we need Drew Eubanks for that matchup or whatever. I don't know if there's something beyond that I'm missing, but I don't know. Did the Suns just sign Thad to be depth is the question that I want to know.
I would just be disappointed if that's the case, because, I don't know, like some people are my replies last night saying he's washed, Eubanks is the best we have, but we saw 29 minutes. We've seen 29 minutes of Thad in 2 games against the Rockets. Just give us a little bit more. Eubanks can take the confidence hit going into the playoffs. Can I throw a stat out at you that's crazy?
Yes.
This is crazy to me. Okay. The 5-man lineup of Booker, Beal, Allen, Durant, Nurkic, the ideal starting lineup that we all love, right? Booker, Beal, Allen, Durant, Nurkic, plus 11.5 net rating on the season, offensive rating of 128. Okay? That's the baseline. That's crazy. Offensive rating 128. All-time offensive rating, Nurkic being the connecting piece, also grabbing offensive rebounds, playing at the level on defense, doing all sorts of great stuff. We know. You make one substitution in that 5-man lineup. One substitution, Mike. And make it now Booker, Beal, Allen, Durant, Eubanks instead of Nurkic. Just take out Nurkic and put in Eubanks. Sample size of 80 possessions. Not a tiny sample size. Not as big as it is with Nurkic, but not tiny. Minus 6.2 net rating. Offensive rating 106. Below league average by a lot. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's one substitution, and you have 3 stars. You have 3 stars on the floor, and a shooter giving you 49% from deep on the season, or whatever Grayson is at, and then you just put Eubanks in there, and you're telling me the entire thing falls apart. What does that say about this team?
Yeah, I mean, on the season, just raw plus minus. Yusuf Nurkic, number 1 on the Suns, raw plus minus, plus 338. So when Nurkic is on the floor for the Suns are outscoring teams this season by 338 points. With Drew Eubanks on the floor, there have been 20 players that have played minutes for the Suns. And obviously, the more minutes you play, the more opportunity you have here. But there have been 20 players who've played minutes for the Suns this season. Minus 106 by Drew Eubanks is the worst for the Suns. And I'll read you all the players right now that are in the negative for when they've played minutes on this team so far this season. There's going to be something that you notice about these players. Teo Maledon, David Roddy, Jordan Goodwin, Yuta Watanabe, Chimezi Metu, Udoka Azubuike, Keita Bates-Diop, and Nazir Little are the guys that are in the negative on the season for just raw plus minus. What you notice about those guys, first of all, a few of them are two-way players. Almost all the rest of them are gone. They're not even on the team anymore. And the rest of them that are, now David Roddy, inexplicably getting minutes lately.
I don't know if it's so inexplicably because there's
Josh
so many
Okogie
injuries,
is hurt. That's
and
probably
Nazir,
what it is,
Nazir Little is hurt. If either of those guys were available, then they would be playing. Not to say that Roddy is good. He hasn't impressed me in the minutes he's played, but we don't have anyone else.
Well,
maybe Ish Wainwright.
The point is,
maybe they could play
those
Ish
guys are
Wainwright.
really out of the rotation, essentially. They're not in the regular rotation other than Drew Eubanks. And part of that is just the position he plays. He's the backup center. But at this point, with Drew, just try something else. We just
here's what I don't understand.
Just try. If you're worried about a size disadvantage, play Thaddeus Young with Bol. Play them both at the same time.
Yeah,
now you have a bunch of size out there. Yeah, just try that.
Here's what I don't get about the building Drew's confidence argument also, is that, that lineup that I referenced, basically the starting lineup, but Eubanks instead of Nurkic that is not playing well. You look at Eubanks set screens for Devin Booker now. Booker turns the corner, and he's not even looking at Eubanks. He's not.
It's like Ayton's back, yeah.
The trust is, you watch the games, Booker's turning that corner faster and trying to dive at the rim because he's saying, I can't look behind me. This guy's not going to catch a ball. He's not going to finish. It's me. I need to score. So the trust, the confidence fundamentally is gone. These guys don't trust him. They might trust him to do the offensive rebound tap back, and I don't think anyone's suggesting that he's a total bum on defense or anything. It's not like Drew is awful at everything, but as an offensive piece compared to what Nurkic brings, the Stars fundamentally do not trust him. So I don't know where that leaves you, where you can now say 15 games left in the season, we can build his confidence back up. I just don't think it's coming back.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to make the case that it is. It's just really tough. I think, the passing is not there. The defense is so bad. And I think one of the things that drives me crazy about Eubanks is the extent to which defensively he gets pushed under the rim so easily. And what I mean by that is on drives, all of a sudden he's under the rim in a way that he can't even jump up and contest. And if he's so deep under the rim, positionally in the wrong place, deep under the rim, he can't even get up to contest for offensive rebounds, right? So now he's just stuck. There's nothing he can do. And then I think the lack of awareness that if the ball gets tipped to somebody else at the rim, he's not quick enough mentally to get out there for a second contest. It really is defensively in the games where it felt like Ayton was completely checked out. That's kind of what it feels like all the time with Drew Eubanks on the floor defensively at this point. Now, you're talking about the offense struggling. Look, Nurkic does so much offensively in ways that I think a lot of people don't even realize. He makes everyone better around him offensively, I think, on a regular basis. Yeah, sometimes he makes some pretty dumb plays, and those are loud, dumb plays in the fourth quarter at times. But obviously, the offense works so much more smoothly. And I think with Drew, if you could just get out there and contest shots and be okay defensively and grab rebounds in particularly, then you would be fine. Honestly, you'd be fine. But if the defense collapses, if the rebounding consists of him tapping it back and it's a 50-50 chance of the Suns catching it or a fast break for the other team, I just don't know how that works for this team. I just don't know how you don't try somebody who, at least in Thad Young, has some of the passing chops that Nurkic has, which can help Kevin Durant. It can help Devin Booker. It can help these guys get a little bit better. And you mentioned screens. Eubanks out there setting screens for Devin Booker. Nothing makes Nurkic's screens stand out more than Eubanks' screens. Man, those Nurkic screens are just massive. They're huge. Yeah. Nobody in the Suns can do it like that. Or Thad Young can't do that either.
Or Bol screens, which are not real screens because he never makes contact and he's just too thin. So it's that is something that Nurkic, being 300 pounds, just has.
He's just one of the best in the NBA at it. Yeah.
Advantage. Yeah.
And so try, Frank, if you're listening, just give him a try. I don't know, maybe against Boston. Maybe don't do Boston. Give him 20 minutes against the Charlotte Hornets. Give Thad Young 20 minutes against the Charlotte Hornets.
You could try him against Boston if KP doesn't play.
I just understand if you don't want to, right? I understand if you don't want to.
You don't think Thad Young can hold his own against, who is it, Luke Cornett? Come on, Boston's bench sucks.
Yeah.
Their starters
I would
are awesome.
do it, but I'm saying sucks. I understand if he doesn't, just in their lower risk games, Charlotte Hornets get his feet wet, see if it works, give him a try. I would be okay with trying it against Boston as well. Yeah. I want to end here talking about the standings and where the Suns are. I mentioned it up top. I truly thought with the Devin Booker injury, especially when we thought it could be up to 14 days, which shout out Devin Booker somehow coming back a little earlier. Hopefully he is still good to play. We haven't heard anything about that Boston game. It is still a few days away, so I imagine he'll be okay. I was convinced that the Suns were just going to be in the play-in by the time they were back. Sacramento got beat by Houston as well. that shout out to them for staying in that 7th seed. So I just want to read out where we're at right now. Number 1, OKC. Number 2, Denver. Number 3, Minnesota. And then we got that 4-5 matchup of LA, New Orleans. Then the Suns at 6. And then the whole play-in, which is Kings, Mavs, Lakers, Warriors. Who knows? It seems like that's probably going to be the play-in if the Suns play well. Kings, Mavs, Lakers,
Warriors. Still a big if. We are only one game ahead of both the Kings and Mavs. And there are 2.5 games separating the Kings and the Warriors. So I will say, at this point in the season, that 7, 8, 9, 10 order could change quite a bit. From there, the play-in is basically locked in because the Rockets try as they might to beat the Suns, beat the Kings. They've got some good games recently. The Rockets are 5 games out of the play-in in the 11th seed, so they're not coming back from that.
It seems very unlikely with the amount of games left in the season. Is this the most ideal, at least first-round matchup for the Suns? The Minnesota Timberwolves are currently in 3. Struggled a little bit lately.
5-5 in their last 10.
5-5 in their last 10. Karl Anthony Towns out at least for a month. Probably is not going to play in the playoffs, and even if he does, he's not going to be fully healthy, most likely. If he does end up playing. A team that maybe has a few guys that have struggled in the playoffs. Their best player is only 22 or 23 years old in Anthony Edwards. The Suns get to match up against the Minnesota Timberwolves if they stay in 6 and the Timberwolves stay in 3. Is that the best matchup for the Suns? Is this the best we can hope for them to make it to the first round? Like,
if
other
you
than
that,
you pass the Pelicans and you play the Clippers in round 1. That's the other option.
If you could choose any orientation of the standings, getting a first round 3-6 matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves, if things stay as they are right now, you could not ask for better. It is far and away the best option for the Suns. Now, whoever they do end up playing, they need to take any opponent seriously and beat them, no matter what. But far and away, if I could choose between the OKC Thunder, the Nuggets, the Wolves, and the Clippers, give me the Wolves without Karl Anthony Towns. It's not close, Mike. It's not close. Ant is one star who you can pressure significantly on the defensive end. Gobert, we know, is brings something to the table but cannot create his own offense. So that's what they have Cat for. It's not close compared to what all those other teams offer. That's who you want to play.
You know who the Suns played last this season?
Is it the Timberwolves?
It's the Minnesota Timberwolves, April 14th, 2024.
Really interesting. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Because that could be a game that actually impacts the standings at the end of the season, and the Suns have the opportunity to potentially either tank it or really force a way to win it in order to make sure that they get the right place.
Let's go one step further, by the way, which is currently the OKC Thunder have a half game advantage over the Denver Nuggets for the 1 seed. If that flips and you've got a situation, now this is so much like having to be 8 steps ahead, and it's the probability drops that everything falls into its right place. But if Denver is 1, Minnesota is 3, LA is 4, and Phoenix is 6, you have a first round matchup against the Timberwolves and a second round matchup where you're probably playing the Thunder, maybe playing if anyone could beat the Thunder, but Denver and LA have to take care of each other. And you could avoid having to play either Denver or LA until the Western Conference Finals.
That feels like a pretty good matchup there. I mean, OKC is terrifying, but yeah.
OKC is still a great team. OKC is still a great team. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you'd rather
the second round is going to be brutal in the Western Conference.
You would
no matter
much
what.
rather play an inexperienced OKC team in the second round of the playoffs than either Denver or LA. So basically what I'm telling Suns fans right now is you might not like it, but you should probably be rooting for the Denver Nuggets for the rest of the season so that they tie up the first seed. Root against the Thunder and Timberwolves and root for the Nuggets.
I'm cool with it. It will feel weird at first, following Swipe a Cam. But I'll have to do it, I think, in order to make sure I'm really up to date on all the right Nuggets propaganda. The Suns have only played the Minnesota Timberwolves once this season. It was, I think, early on for the Suns, like a signature victory after starting the season a little bit rough. They played the Timberwolves on the second night of a back-to-back. It was all the way back on November 15th, and the Suns kind of took care of that game beginning to end. They played pretty well, I think, in that game. But then they've played, so many games since then and have yet to play the Minnesota Timberwolves again. They have 2 games against the Timberwolves before the end of the season, one on April 5th and the other, like I said, the last game of the season where they, maybe both teams are just kind of locked in place and they just play. Usually the Suns in the last few years, those are the games where they just let bench guys play the entire game, essentially. They rest guys before the beginning of the playoffs. If you're looking to buy tickets, wait to figure out if the teams are locked in place in the standings before you buy tickets for that. It's at Minnesota, but that Minnesota Timberwolves game. So, it's just a little bit, I feel like that's the right place to be. I would feel a little bit differently, I think, if I've had another opportunity to see the Suns against the Timberwolves, to know about those matchups. It feels like they're pretty good matchups for the Suns. It's one of those games where it's like they don't really have anyone to guard all 3 of these guys. But, it would be nice to see that again for the season. I mean, I'm sure you remember that Timberwolves game to start the season, right?
Yeah. I also just think, I think Nurkic, I'm not going to say field day necessarily, but I just think he would hold his own really well against Gobert in a series. A fun, physical series between 2 true centers. And then obviously, even without Cat, like Naz Reid is going to log heavy minutes. So that would be interesting to see in a 7-game series against them. But I think we match up well. I like it.
I think so too. I think, what is the worst case for the Suns? I mean, other than play-in?
The worst case for the Suns, other than play-in, is that you get the matchup you want against the Minnesota Timberwolves without Karl Anthony Towns and losing 5 games. that would be very embarrassing, and you'd maybe have to question the entire configuration of this roster going forward if something like that happens.
Yeah, if you get up to the 5th seed and you play the Clippers in round 1, it's also a little bit tough.
That's scary, yeah.
Because it's like, if you're rising in the standings for the Suns, you either get to the 4th seed, which they could do. They're 4 games back, so it would be really hard. But if you rise up in the standings, there's really no advantage to rising for the Suns right now unless they get to 4th, because then they have home court advantage in round 1. But if they just get up to the 5th, it could be Minnesota in the 4th seed as well if they drop a few games. The Clippers in the 3rd, but it seems like it's most likely going to be the Clippers in that seed. So there's not a lot of advantage to moving up. But
hey, how many games are left? There were 38 and 27. There's 17 games left. We're 4 games out of the 4th seed and home court advantage. It is unlikely, but stranger things have happened, especially given that the Clippers and Timberwolves are both 5-5 in their last 10 games. If one of those teams went, say, 8-9, and the Suns went 12-5, you could flip with one of them. It's possible. Stranger things have happened. So, that we still have, I think, our eyes set on, if you ask them in the locker room, I'm sure they would still say they want to go, not just for the 5th seed, they want to go for 4th and get that home court, that extra home game.
And they should play like that. They should play to win every game possible. They haven't played enough minutes together to feel fully confident going into the playoffs. They should play every game like it's somewhat of a playoff game for the rest of the season, essentially. That's the right way to do it. Let's see. just looking at the rest of the games left, yeah, I feel pretty good about that. I'm interested to see that Boston game. I'm excited for everyone to watch that one. That's on TNT, right?
It's on one of them. Yeah, I think TNT.
You want to watch Friday's game, the second night of a back against the Charlotte Hornets on Playback?
I think it's on NBA TV. Isn't that weird?
I think we can do that. We could do that.
Can we're allowed to do those games?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we're allowed to do those games, then yeah, I'll do it on Playback with you.
All right, so let's do Friday. Join us on Friday for Playback. We'll watch the Charlotte Hornets against, hopefully, most of the Phoenix Suns playing. By the way, if there's any gamblers out there looking at this yesterday, Devin Booker can only miss 2 games before he's out of the running for any awards, or All-NBA, I think, is included in that 65 games. So keep in mind that's there. If you're thinking he can miss 3, the game where he was ejected 6 minutes into the game doesn't count for him. So if you're looking at the Basketball Reference, he has to play, I guess, 20 minutes or whatever for it to count, which is funny.
Real quick on that, because we were talking about, we played Cleveland yesterday. Donovan Mitchell missed a game yesterday, and he's going to miss more games, but disqualifying him officially from All-NBA awards this year, or All-NBA teams and other awards, which is unfortunate for him, because we talked about Donovan Mitchell has had a fantastic season.
Yeah, my favorite player, right?
But if Booker can go the rest of the season without missing 2 more games, or without missing 3 more games, that would disqualify him. Good for his chances of an All-NBA team, right? I'm not sure we've really thought about who exactly is going to be occupying the 6 guard spots, but it feels like as of now, if Booker can make it, he would be one of the 6, no doubt, right? Who else would be in there?
Yeah, I would say so. If he continues to play all those games. And even on Kevin Durant, who's played well too, if he's going to be in the running for that, he has the ability of missing some games. So the Suns could actually rest him a few times down the stretch in the season if they actually want to still give him the chance to do that.
And
so just keep that in mind too.
Should be noted as well. I want Beal to play as much as possible so he can ramp up for the playoffs, but he is already disqualified from awards, not that he would win any anyway. So I guess theoretically they could rest him somewhere if they really felt they wanted to. I think it's more important for him to play. But yeah, Booker is really the guy who can't miss games.
That's right. All right, you got anything else before we go?
I think that's it. Let's
shout out
take on
Grayson
Boston.
Allen. I know we talked about his defense. We touched on his 8 3-point games, but man, some incredible shooting since the last time we recorded. So just give one shout out to that. But yes, join us on Friday for the Charlotte Hornets game on Playback. And I'm excited about that Boston game. We'll probably come back after that Boston one to record a Patreon episode. So if you want to listen to that, patreon.com/thetimeline. Check out ethicalhoops.com. We got some good stuff coming pretty soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.